flavors here. You have like just normal fact data, very high volume, daily aggregates, medium volume, and then you have reduced facts, which are the lowest volume. They come with some trade-offs though, especially between the second two, like between daily aggregate and reduced fact. There's some interesting trade-offs that we're gonna kind of dive into as well, because as the data gets smaller, you lose some of the flexibility around what type of analytics you can do on it. But that's like worth the trade-off of being able to do analytics more quickly. So that's one of the things that you'll find in data engineering a lot of the time, is that when you are working with data and you aggregate it up, the data gets smaller, easier to work with in terms of like speed of queries. But then it's like, you're like, oh, what if I want to do this? Or what if I want to do that? And then like some of the options are taken away from you because the data is too aggregated up. So let's go a little bit deeper into each one of these. Okay, so this is what a fact schema might look like, where you have like a user ID, you have a timestamp, you have the action that they took, you have the date partition, and then there might be like other properties. Like for example, here it's like I made a like on this post on an Android phone at this time, and then here's like I commented on this post on an iPhone at this time. And so like the thing about fact data, like when you're here, it's very, very granular, and you can ask very, very specific questions of like whatever question under the sun that you want to ask. But the trade-off is like you can only ask questions usually for like what has happened recently or like within a couple days. You can look at very small time horizons, and the reason for that is because you end up missing like the volume ends up being unwieldy if you have if your time frame gets too big. So you can't like the fact data, like especially if you're looking at more than a month of fact data, like if it's high volume enough, then like a month of fact data is going to cause like all sorts of mayhem and all sorts of problems, and it's just going to cause your queries to be really slow, and like they might not even run. You might get some weird out of memory problems. Like there's all sorts of interesting things that can happen when you do your fact data modeling or your analytics just right on top of fact data, right? But at the same time, like this is great like for other questions, right? If you're answering very specific questions like what happened today, or what happened in a week, what happened in 2 weeks, right? One of the things that I noticed at Facebook is like, so they had this thing where like after 90 days, everything had to be anonymized. So like that policy also really impacted analytics a lot, whereas like it made it so everyone was just looking at the last 90 days of data, and like they didn't like look back further, and they weren't trying to figure out like, okay, how do we get like the other days of data in here as well? But anyways, this is a crazy problem that can happen. But so fact data, the key thing I'm trying to get you guys to take away from this slide is that this schema is very flexible, very good at answering very specific questions, but it's very not good at answering questions over a longer time horizon. Once you have a longer time horizon, you're gonna have a hard time using this schema, I promise. Okay, so let's go to the next schema, that daily aggregate, right? That was the next one that we were talking about. So here's daily aggregate. So daily aggregate, you have a couple things here, right? You have user ID, then you have like a metric name, in this case likes given, and you have the date, and then this is how many likes were given. So now we have our daily aggregates. This is going to look a little bit nicer. Now in this case, you have one row per user per metric per day. This is a little bit nicer. Instead of having like, for likes, like for example, this first row here, there was 34 records in the old table, and now there's 1. And so that is a big difference, right? That aggregation is going to make this table a lot easier to work with. And you can do a lot of really powerful things with this table as well. So one of the things that's really nice about this daily aggregate table is you get a lot longer time horizons now. Like I noticed, at least when I was working in big tech, that like if you have this schema, This works for like if you want to look at like a year or 2 years. This works great. This works great. And this like can work really well. And the thing that's really nice about it is you get these nice joins. Because say you have like an SCD, right? So you wanted to know like what my primary device operating system was, like whether I was on Android or iPhone, and like which was my favorite. And that might change over time. But the thing that's nice about these aggregates is you have that at least down to the daily granularity. Obviously, you don't have like the hours. You lose a little bit there. Like if you have something that's changing like on an hourly basis, then it's not going to work. But like most SCDs are on a daily basis anyways. So you can still join this table with SCDs, and you can still do like aggregates at the higher level of bringing in other dimensions. And that can be a very powerful way to use this schema. So, and it works great. Those year-long or 2-year-long queries, they do take a little bit of time though. They take like, I mean, at least back then when we were working with Hive, and those queries would take like 2 days, right? 2 days to work with. And that's like kind of a showstopper. It's kind of not the way to go. And you can't analyze dimensions very well if it takes that long. Like, or if, like, obviously 2 days is not that long, but it's like still long enough to be painful. So one of the things about this schema here, this daily aggregated fact, like a your elevation framework, we can still make this smaller. What was very powerful when I was working at Facebook. So this schema probably looks a little bit crazy, but we are going to be working with this schema today, and we're going to be building out literally this exact data model in our lab today. But let's kind of go over like how this works, right? So you have a user ID, you have likes given, and then in this case, there's only one row per month, right? And then you have your value array. So one of the things that I recognized when I was working on this problem, because a lot of this stuff, like why I even had to come up with this model, right, was I was working on these problems of like, there was the first decline in growth at Facebook in the history of the company. And they were like, what's going on? What's going on? We need to look at all the metrics. We need to look at all the metrics over the whole period of Facebook. Like, how do we like figure out what the hell is going on here? And like, how do we can like troubleshoot this, right? And that's where like we were mostly working with these like daily metrics. And I was like, wow, these daily metrics are pretty fast. But like we had that 2-day, 3-day backfill problem. And I was like, that's not going to work, right? That's not going to work. So then we moved to this we moved to these monthly metrics, right? Which essentially reduces the volume again 30x because of the fact that now but the thing is like, keep in mind, this is not a monthly aggregate. That's the thing that I hope y'all keep in mind here. And that's why this is a beautiful thing. If it was a monthly aggregate, this would be boring and like y'all would like not like this, and this would be kind of stupid. But this is actually not a monthly aggregate. So how this works, right, is we have this month start, and then we have this array of values. So the date is an index. So in this case, 34 is how many likes user 3 gave on July 1st. And then 3 is July 2nd, 3 July 3rd, and then 9 is July 31st. So what this does is instead of storing the date as a string, right, in multiple rows, we store the date as an offset or as an index. So you do date math based on the index. The position in the array is equal to what the date was. So this is very similar, like in a lot of ways, this is similar to yesterday's lab on date lists. Like if y'all remember, like how we had that crazy like bits of ones and zeros, and the position based on like where, if that bit was the first bit, that meant it was for today, and then the last bit meant it was like 30 days ago or whatever. This is a similar concept, except you are doing it for non-binary things, right? You're doing it for things that are either like a decimal number or like a count, like an integer value. I talked about a lot of this stuff already, where I said like the first index is for the date at the beginning of the month, and the last index is for the date at the end of the month, right? And I was talking about how dimensional joins get weird, if you want things to stay performant, because you don't want to like have to bring in a dimension in the middle of the month. That was actually one of the things that like I was trying to figure out. Like that was like one of the last things I was looking at Facebook, was like how to do that, like how to actually make it so that the dimension gets assigned to the right value based on the date, and like based on the index in the array, and then the sum happens the right way without exploding it. And I couldn't figure it out. That was like, I was like, it's too crazy, too crazy. And I was like, and that's one of the beautiful things about data, is that like if you explain to people the constraints of what is like, what are the oddities and what are the weirdness of things that can happen with this, and then they're and they can accept that as like, okay, that is inconsistency, but like it's fine for like what I'm trying, for the purposes of what I'm trying to use this for. Like it's great, right? And so that can be a really really powerful thing that will work, right? So what this did was we were able to enable long-term analyses that were a lot faster. So go to the next slide. So here's the impact from this new schema, right? So before, if we wanted to do a 10-year backfill with that, that intermediate layer, that daily data, a 10-year backfill would take about a week to maybe a little bit more. And once you got the data into this format, instead of taking a week, it took a couple hours. It took like 3 or 4 hours to run because it's just dramatically smaller data. And it made it so we could cut up the data and look at every possible dimension under the sun, like for the entire history of Facebook as quick as we wanted. And that's like, when I talk about this, like unlock the decades long slow burn analyses at Facebook, which is like, okay, is there a certain type of user that is not doing a certain type of thing over a long period of time, but the decline is so slow that our alerts don't pick it up and our alerts don't see it, right? So then what we were able to do is just like kind of look at all that stuff. And like, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of like a root cause analysis or RCA. So RCA is a very powerful thing to try to troubleshoot what was going wrong and what happened, right? And that is a big thing that this framework unlocked. And so, yeah, this is very powerful. I felt very proud of building this out. And a lot of people in the analytics space at Facebook were like, wow, Zach, you're actually doing stuff that is kind of innovative and new things here that are kind of changing the company. And so this is really powerful. And I think I have one more slide here. So I loaded this framework up with 50 core metrics and 15 core dimensions. And this enabled 10-year analyses to happen in hours instead of weeks. And they didn't promote me. They said that was not enough of an impact to be a senior engineer. And I was like very angry about that because I thought because I thought I solved some really insane problems with this framework. But yeah, that was so. So the fact that Facebook did not recognize the impact of this, but it was crazy because then later on they did, because like a couple of my teammates who stayed, they kept working on this project, right? And they got this thing called discretional equity, which is where Facebook will give people like another big equity grant to keep them and maintain them. And like, and so they made millions of dollars off of all my hard work, and and they're grateful for it. I'm still good friends with these people, but I'm always like, I tell them sometimes, I'm like, y'all owe me money, dude. Like, so yeah, I think that is what we got for the lecture today. Congrats on getting to the end of the Day 3 lecture. Reduced facts are crazy, right? I'm excited for you to check out the lab and how to minimize shuffle and get in there and get hands-on. If you're in the platform, make sure to skip to the next link so that you get the credit that you deserve. So we're gonna say create table. We're gonna call this, let's call it array metrics. I think that's a good name. And then we have a user ID. Right. And apparently we want to call it numeric because numeric will work, because I remember in yesterday's class it was like weird because we'll just match it with whatever's in events here. Even though I don't like the word numeric, I don't even know what that means. But it's fine because we used big int last time and it didn't work. But I think numeric will work because I don't want to use text. Okay, so we have user ID, then we have like month start. We'll call this a date. Then we have metric name. Metric name is going to be a text. And then we need the array, right? So I'm just call it metric array. And then, so there's a big debate here about like, okay, like what type should this be, right? Is this like a real array, or is this an integer array? Or is this like, you could say this is like a scoring class array, right? If you want to do like array of struct, right? But like I'm not about that life. I think we're going to do integer array here. I guess like you could say integer or real, right? Because if you use real, like real and integer, like they work, like you can put an integer in a real, but you can't put a real in an integer. So, okay, fine. You guys convince me, or I convince myself. We're going to use real. In this case, we have a primary key here. Primary key is going to be user ID, month start, metric name, right? This is going to be our table we're going to be working with today that we will be building up slowly but surely. So let's go ahead and create this bad boy. Cool. So one of the things about this that is kind of tricky is that you have to think about this in terms of partitions and like Hive and or like partitions and things like that. And that's where this like can be a little bit messy compared to like in Postgres, whereas it's a lot cleaner like when you have like that insert overwrite sort of mentality, right? Because in this case, we need to have month start, but it'll make more sense. Like we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I'll show you what I mean. So what we want to start with here is we want to create that daily aggregate function. All right, that's actually not too hard. So let's go ahead and say with daily aggregate as. So we're going to be pulling from events here. I'm going to comment this out. We'll pull from events. We're going to say select star from events. And then, well, what do we want from events? Well, we probably want user ID. And then we probably want to count one as num site hits. And then we're going to have a where here. And then we should be able to do date of event time equals date. Then we'll say like 2023-01-01. So we're gonna do like the month of January, and that's how we're gonna build up this array. So if we do right now and we say daily aggregate, we're missing the group by. So we got this guy. We run him. Cool. See, we have all of our hits. It's okay. That's a problem. We need to get rid of that, this null. So. And I'm gonna paste this. This to y'all, like, because obviously I just like jumped immediately into coding. All right. I was wondering how you were typing so fast while speaking. So good. Okay. So we have our aggregate for the day, right? So we like what we want to do is we need like yesterday's aggregate. And so this is where like for the purpose of this lab, I would change this because you don't get, this is one of the things I hate about Postgres that I wish Postgres had was like a merge, because Postgres doesn't have merge, right? Yeah, it doesn't have merge. I think it has like, I think you could do on conflict update though, right? I think you get that. I think we can use on conflict update. We'll try. I might end up Googling a little bit here, but so in this case, we have our daily aggregate, and we need last month's aggregate as well. Like we need like we need like what was yesterday, because if you think about this in production when this is running, like on January 1st, the array will have one value, then it will have two values, then it will have three values, all the way up, right? So that's something that we need to consider when we are building this out. So let's go and get like yesterday array as, and then in this case, we're just going to say select star from array metrics, where in this case, we're going to say month start equals date 2023 0101. because that's all we care about. So now in this case, we can do like we have our daily aggregate, full outer join, yesterday array. One of the things that I hope y'all like at the end of this data modeling stuff is that like you'll recognize that every data modeling problem is actually the same problem, where you just where you full outer join all the time. And obviously, like if I said that on LinkedIn, people would be like, Zach, did you have a stroke? But anyways, let's just run this now, and I think this will make more sense. So we have our site hits, and then we have nulls across the board on the other side, like we would expect, right? So now what we want to do is we have all this. Then what we want to do is we want to essentially create an array, or we want to create a new array for this daily aggregate if it doesn't exist. And then we have to fill backwards, like essentially from that date. So that's where we actually do need to pull in this date here. Because this is going to be needed. We say as current date. Because we need this. We'll call this, fine, we'll just call it as date. I hate how Postgres doesn't like current date's like a keyword. So we're going to need this, and we're also going to need to a group on it, right? Because we'll need this to do the date math later for like, there's an edge case where we need that, I promise. So initially, what we want, right, is we're going to have a coalesce here. of da.user ID and ya.user ID. This is always the best part when you're just like, yeah, I got my coalesce figured out. And then now, like, okay, so then month start, right? Month start can just be like another coalesce here. So the coalesce here is going to be between, and this coalesce is really, really gnarly actually. So in this case, we have, you have ya.monthStart, comma, and then you have da.date, but as a month start. But this is not quite right because this day moves forward. So you got to like truncate this, right? So you got to do like date trunc month da.date. So that like as we kind of accumulate up, this will still stay month start. Okay, so now we have month start. Then we have metric name. Good thing, good old metric name here is we'll call the site hits as metric name. This is something that like is usually hard coded, but it's good. Now we have the hard part, building the damn array. So you can think about it in this first case when yesterday array is completely null and completely empty. It's like pretty straightforward because we know all the users are on the other side. So, or they're only in the daily aggregate, but they're not in the yesterday array. So we're going to essentially fill in the first one. And because I want to really illustrate to y'all the pitfalls here that can happen. So in this case, we just want to do array. And then, so we want to say case when ya.metric_array is not null, then what we want to do is, if the metric array is not null, we want to say ya.metric_array. But we want to, so this is the next day though. So this is the opposite, like from yesterday's date list one where we put the most recent data first. This is actually the other way around because we want everything to line up, right? That's one of the things we want to do here is we want to have everything line up. So what we want to do is we want to do a concat here of, and then we want array, and then we have da.num site hits. But there is, this is another one of those edges where this could be null, and that might be okay. Y'all might be okay with null. Like, I think for this case, I don't like null. I want to do 0 instead of null. So that will be, so then we have else. Okay, so then we have, so if the metric array is not null, that means the user already exists. But then we have when ya.metric_array is null, then for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to put in the this value here. But this is actually wrong, and I will explain why this is wrong here in just a second. But you'll see with this kind of daily aggregate, this is getting us pretty close. So you see we have our user ID and we have our case when statement, and it looks really nice. Wow, someone hit my website 60 times on New Year's. Wow, someone needs to get a life. Or maybe they just love my data engineering. Maybe he's just a super fan. I'm sorry. Okay, so then in this case, this is metric array. Right, I want to say as metric array. In this case, we need to put like an insert into here. Insert into array metrics. Right, and then on conflict. So in this case, on conflict. So our primary key here, we got to put all of them here. So we have on conflict. Then we have all of those, right? And then we say set. And then we say metric array. And then in this case, we say equal to, what is this even doing? Okay, because we want it to be, I think we want it to be the excluded one, because this is going to be the other record, right? And so I think this is just dot metric array. I think that's all we do. So we'll see if this actually works. But there is one more bug here with this guy, which I will kind of show here in a second, but we had to get this on conflict right. I'm glad I got the on conflict stuff to work so we can do it the right way. In a big data world, like, you don't have to worry about this because you get overwrite, right? And overwrite just will just, like, you don't have to worry about how to set the updates of things. Like, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I've been spoiled and I've just been using overwrite for so long that, like, I just expect it out of every technology I work with now. And every time I'm like, why do I have to update? I don't like the update keyword. So anyways, let's go ahead and we should be able to run this query now. Okay, so we ran the query for the first day. All I want to do here is I want to run the query for the second day, and just so I can illustrate the problem. And check if this conflict thing works. Okay, well, something worked. So if we say select star from array metrics, we should have some here that have 2 values. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Yes, everything is exactly what I was thinking was going to happen. Okay, so remember in okay, so you see how, like, for some of these metrics, like, you see this first guy here, he had 6 on January 1st and 0 on January 2nd, so he didn't show up the second day, right? This person was 3 and 3, just very consistently going to 3 pages, right? And so you'll see, though, like, remember one of the things I said was that for every iteration of this, for every data set here, regardless of when a user shows up, everyone should have the same number of elements in the array. In this case, they should have, like, these guys should have 1 more. They should have a 0 at the front because this person essentially didn't exist until January 2nd. And that's what is going on here. So what we need to do is so in this case we have if the metric array is null, then we need to have this array. But there's also it's really awesome. So we have an array fill function, right? And we need a concat here. So the array fill function here is actually going to be equal to so in this case we have month start. So then we have date and minus month start. So this probably looks really funky, but like this is what this is like. So what this does, array fill, what this is going to do is it's going to, so for the second, or let's imagine we're on the 7th of the month and a new user shows up. Then what this will do is date will be the 7th of January and month start will be the 1st. So then this will be 6, right? You'll have 6 values that are there. So for the second, or let's imagine we're on the 7th of the month and a new user shows up. Then what this will do is date will be the 7th of January and month start will be the 1st. So then this will be 6, right? You'll have 6 values that are there that need to be and so what this will do is this will create an array of 6 zeros, right? It'll be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 6 times. So one of the things I want to do real quick is I want to like clear out array metrics though. We're just gonna clear them out because like, and it's gonna yell at me because it's saying there's no. I love that DataGrip does this so that like because you don't want to just delete all the data, but we do want to delete all the data. So that's what this array fill is going to do. And what we're going to do is we're just going to move this back to January 1st, and then we're going to run this 2 times. So we're going to run it for array fill integer does not exist. Okay, so that's so weird. So you actually give it an array like that. That is so weird, but okay. Right. Oh, is that like dimensional values cannot be null? Oh, is it because month start is null? Right. Interesting. Because that is null, and then this is null because it doesn't exist yet. But oh, this is an interesting edge, right? So in that case, we have right. Interesting, because that is null, and then this is null because it doesn't exist yet. But oh, this is an interesting edge, right? So in that case, we have I think there's like a third condition here actually. So when it's completely empty, this is not going to work, right? So when it's completely empty, though, we can just have this first array because we know that that date hasn't happened yet. So what we have here is like when ya.monthStart is null, then we have that array. Okay, I think this should run now. Okay, it ran. So if we look at it, let's say like if we search here, this should. Perfect. So the first day ran, that worked great. But then let's move it to the second day so that we can just see this working. And then I will definitely send this query to y'all. Okay, so that should now, we should get our filled. That did not give us the filled zeros. Oh. Because, no, that actually makes sense because it's not matching here, right? So that's still gonna, this is wrong actually. Like, so we gotta like essentially coalesce this because one of these values is gonna always be there, right? Because essentially what we want is like if both of these values are the same. So that's so weird. I didn't even I thought I ran into this problem before. I know I'm like kind of fumbling here a second, but like let me go over what we actually needed to do here and what's going on. So the problem here is this array can't accept a null value. So what we want to do is we just need to coalesce this to 0. So like if either of these is null, then we just don't fill, because we don't need to fill, because that means it's the first day of the month, right? And that will fix our problem. But now we have bad data again, so we have to delete from the array metrics. But that will we'll be good to go here in just a second. Okay, so that will fix our problem. That's why you have to put a coalesce there, because you can't put array bracket null, because Postgres apparently doesn't like that, which is again like one of those like today I learned sort of moments. So I think this query should run now. Okay, but then if we change this to 2, this should run now. Okay, now we should be good. How is that still not like, okay, now I'm wondering if like the update isn't working, if it's something with the update actually that is, because here we are getting the array fill, because if you have the new date, I know what it is. It's because month start is still null. Because what we need to do is this month start is not actually in this yesterday array. This is a hard-coded value. This is actually not here. Because what's happening right now, I'm going to kind of go over what's going on right here, right? So we have the date here, and we pull it in from the array, but we have a full outer join here, right? And so when I have this month start value here, this is not the right one, because this is going to be null. So on the second, if someone shows up and they don't exist yet, this is going to be null. But really in the pipeline, this is not like, this value is fixed, right? So this is actually date 2023-0101, and it never changes. That date will never change. That date's always the same. So like that's why we're still getting buggy data. Wow, that's a very interesting change. Okay, there we go. Now we'll be good with just like one more delete, and I think we got it here. That's even better. I love that. Yep, we're gonna move it to that, right? Because so you're saying date trunc month of date, right? Like that. Yeah, I like that better. Because then it's not hard coded, right? Because then like you don't have to like, if I want to change it to a new month, I still only have to edit it up here, right? So, okay. Now, keeping in mind that like this kind of array fill stuff, this should work. Okay, we got to change this back to 1 though. So you'll see like this has the same pitfalls that accumulation does. Ooh, types interval and integer cannot match. What? Coalesce date trunc. Because this is it because this needs to be cast as a date as well? Postgres is so weird. Well, because it worked before. Okay, no, yeah, there we go. It's because date trunc returns a timestamp. That's why. So you got to wrap that in another date, right? Like, because that's like so dumb. Okay. Some of this stuff, like all this silly little data engineering stuff is okay. Now, like, my whole point is I just wanted to get it to be where everything in the metrics array. There we go. I know that was painful, y'all, but there we go. We got it. So one of the things to prove it out, right, is we can say cardinality of metric array, and then we can say count 1, and then we can see like how like everyone should have, this should be 2, right? Everyone should be 2. Yep. There we go. 138 users. Everyone has 2 values, right? And then this just keeps working too, though. Like you'll see if we go to 3, right, and then everyone will have 3 values now, right? If we kind of like, where did that query go? There we go. Put that back and then change that to 3. But you'll see now if we run this query now, everyone has 3. So that's kind of the idea here. Here, let me paste this to y'all because there was that weird date cast that I think we missed. This query essentially does it where we can build these things up and run all of these queries at once, and we can get all of the data. Obviously, like this line is absolutely nuts, though. I don't know if y'all if you look at this line of code, you're like, what is this guy doing here? Like, this is so crazy. But that gives us our code for that, right? So one of the things that I wanted to show, though, that I think y'all will really appreciate is how to do the aggregation of this, so that you can see how we can aggregate. And I'm just going to show how to do it with metric name, and we can group on metric name, but then it will be obvious how, like, because you can join on user ID and bring in other dimensions if you want, but you can group on metric name, and that's going to make more sense for now. So I'm just going to open a new query console here. So if we say select star from array metrics, right? This has all of our data, and we have three days of data right now, right? But we want to aggregate this, and what we want back here is dimensional analysis on 3 days. And I'm just going to illustrate how this works kind of and then it'll make more sense how this works like for like a month. So we don't have to do the whole accumulation thing. But so what we want to do is we want to say metric name. And in this case, we want to say sum. And then we want to say metric array at 1, right? And then we can say, and then we put this back into an array. It's so weird. Like, this is another thing. This is another problem that I noticed, that a lot of SQL syntax stuff doesn't work the right way for this. So now you'll see, and then we can say group by metric array. So this query works, right? There we go. So you see now how we have, and then we have month start here, right? So, oh, we got to put it in the group by too, month start. So you see how now we have, like, this is all added up though, like how this is, like, we have one record here, right? So one of the things that you can do, right, is this part can be like, you can do like there should be like a unnest like function here that gives, okay, that worked. So what you do is, okay, I know how to do it though. So you have the array not unnested, right? And we're going to call this as summed array. And we're going to say with, we're going to say call this an aggregate for now. And then what we can do is we can say select star from ag. We can say cross join unnest. And then in this case we have ag dot summed array with ordinality, right? Okay, I think it works this way with ordinality. This is getting absurdly fancy, but I assure you that this is important, why we have this like index here. We're going to call this index though. So if we run this query, you'll see, okay, so now we have this index here, right? And Postgres is dumb, and we have to do -1 because it does one-based indexing. But we need to add 1 day to our month start. So if we say, so we have metric name, then we say month start plus, there should be like plus interval. Can you do like 1 day, or like, is it interval in, yeah, we can say day index -1. But is it like that? What? There should be a way to do that, like add 1 day. So the idea here is you can take this month and add 1 day to it. Like, does anyone know what the add 1 day function is? Like from an int? It's like, you got like date add, or like, I always freaking get this stuff like date in, date part, date out, date trunk. Okay, so problem here is, remember, it's 0 based, right? So this is actually the wrong day. So we need to do index -1 because Postgres, and that's, okay, perfect. So now now we have our, and then we have lm as value, right? And then this is, okay, there we go. So now we have our date and we have, you see how now this is back to daily aggregate, right? But the thing is like, I want to show how this works really well though, because of like how like if we just load in one more day into the metric, right? Then this pops in, and then over here, all we got to do is add it to the array here. And then this part was like, I actually ended up writing Python that generated this. There needs to be a UDF that essentially just does this sum for you. But so you see now we have the fourth, and that just added it very efficiently. Because the thing is like this explode here is like, we aren't, like, every user only has one record, right? And so we can sum everyone up, and it's like very fast because we just sum them up in the array, and we don't ever explode the array. We only explode the array after everything is aggregated. And so that's why like we have like one record for each metric name. But that's where like in here, when you have this this sum here, this is where you could join in users to like get some other value, right? You could get like, I don't know, there's other values that you could get here to like explode out the dimensions. And so that you would have more here, but then you would have daily data with that dimensional value as well. And so that's how you can go from monthly kind of array metrics back to daily aggregates. But it's very fast because you have it's the minimal set of data that you need, and that's like this idea like saved Facebook so much time and so much effort and energy. Congrats on finishing this 5-hour course, doing all the hands-on exercises and getting to the end and sticking it out. I'm really proud of you. Congratulations. Not very many people get this far. If you really like this content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And good job. I'm excited for you to check out week. Anyways, let's go ahead.
one standard flow, at least as a starting point. You do basic feature engineering. You throw that in a easily switch compute providers.